Hello, everyone, and we want to welcome you back to another episode of the Disruptive Voices of the Pacific. You are seeing a regular face again. This is the third time that I've had Paul on this platform because what he has to offer is just so important. And even though a lot of my work is done around abuse and pornography, these conversations about how to prepare our daughters for healthy relationships and marriage is what will hopefully prevent our daughters in ending up in abusive and toxic relationships. So today we're going to discuss how to prepare your sons for healthy dating and marriage relationships. So thank you, Paul, from the Men's Network, Men's Empowerment Network. Good to have you again.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be back again, Veronica.
Yes, it's been some very good discussion. I've been getting a lot of feedback from parents. So thank you for your feedback because that helps us to know that we're on the right track, that what we're putting out on this platform is helpful. Now, at first we were going to do this episode, how to prepare your children for healthy dating and marriage, but we realized boys and girls are really different. Paul, you have 3 sons and 3 daughters. How are the boys different from the girls?
Oh no, we didn't know that having boys would be disruptive until we started to have boys. We met people and they said, "Oh, you got 3 girls and 3 boys." I said, "Yeah." Who's older? They said, "Oh, the girls." I said, "Oh, lucky you." And we didn't realize that because the boys were still small. But now as they grow up, they're still in primary, but you can just you know the difference. Boys, without saying boys will be boys, is actually true because they will be the noisiest, roughest, how they play inside the house, what they do. It's just so different from the girls. So, as we go into the discussions, we know that boys are wired differently from the girls.
Yeah, it's very obvious, isn't it? Which
Yes.
is good. We need to be different. We're not trying to be the same. God's created us different. What ages are your boys?
My boys, for me, my boys, one is 10, the eldest is 10, and we have one is going to be 8, and one is going to be 5.
Okay.
When I was a young man, I brought up another boy. He came into my life before I was married, and I brought him into my life. I think I hadn't shared this with you,
Oh,
but yes, so I haven't shared this with you. But he was 11 years old when I brought him into my life. That was before I got married. I looked after him when he was 11 when I was teaching. Then I brought him over to Suva, and I looked after him when he was with me when I got married, and then we had children. And he was like the children would look to him as their big brother. So I looked after him from 11 right till he finished his primary education, finished his secondary education, and even got a degree at the University of South Pacific. So he was always perceived as the children would perceive him as their big brother.
yeah.
And because I was not so much older than him, many people would perceive him as my small brother. Yeah. So that's just like if you say how many boys, 3, but I would call him because he's been part of my life right from when he's 11. He's now 27, I think 27. Yeah.
Well, wow. That's amazing. So you've had a bit of experience already bringing up a young man. And also, you've got your 3 biological sons, but I know with the Men's Empowerment Network, you're also running programs in schools and camps. So you're very experienced with young men. Why is it so important in a culture where there's just so much abuse and pornography? Why is it important that we are intentional about just preparing our sons for marriage?
Yeah. One of the reasons that we need to be, and I love that word you said, intentional. We need to be intentional when approaching young men and men in general, is because for me, I believe that society is really relies on how well our men are groomed. A society that will be toxic is a society that has toxic men in it. And this is perceived because men have, in most societies, have mostly the power. And that's why our network is called empowerment. Eh? So with that power, we want to empower them on how to use it in the proper way, through the proper channels, and use it in a way that will benefit all in society. So it's very important. It's really important. We're looking at Fiji's history. Look at our country, and you see that it's men that have struck our nations at vital points, led by men, struck our nation at vital points that have set us back many years. And I know you will know what I'm talking about. So our country has been down the road 3 or 4 times because led by men. And imagine if that didn't happen. Where would Fiji be? I don't know, but I'm sure we wouldn't be where we are right now. But that is why it's very, very important that our boys, our men, are groomed or shaped well at an early stage. At an early stage, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So let's just talk a bit about particularly dating. Usually, particularly when the hormones kick in the teenage years, the boys are starting to notice the girls. And I love this because your boys are just that they're on the precipice of teenage years, aren't they? But how are you preparing your younger guys now to treat women?
Well, firstly, with my own boys, because they are that age, I'm teaching them first of all how to be respectful. Respectful. I'm teaching them how to be able to communicate well, not in particularly only to girls, but just communication. How to communicate themselves, how to be able to communicate themselves in different situations. And that's from my young boys. That's how I teach them. You need something, you say it, you speak. You say what you want, and you share your mind, and you share it in a manner that is respectful and at the same time will be acceptable or understood by the other party. That's how I'm teaching them here, because one of the keys, and many have overlooked this, is one of the factors that causes domestic violence in our country is poor communication. Poor communication. What is said out of what words that come out of a man's mouth is perceived differently by the woman. And thus, what comes out of the woman's mouth is perceived differently by the man. And it is this miscommunication and the lack of knowledge of how to communicate that causes a lot of conflicts within the family. And, so that's what I'm trying to train my young boys. I'm trying to teach them, just speak your mind. You may not be able to say everything that you're feeling, but at least learn to speak and communicate well. Also, at the same time, when I'm talking to young men, this is men who are in young boys, teenage boys. When I go into schools and I go and talk to these young men, one of the things that I try to get at first for these young men is purpose, a goal-filled life, a purposeful life. I try to make their minds grasp that first, because like I said last time, I'm using God's perspective, God's blueprint, because God gave man work, purpose, before he gave him Eve. Because when he created the garden, he gave him look after the garden, and woman came later, so work came first. What we have in today's society is we've reversed it. Many men are getting married, looking at girlfriends, looking at girlfriends, wives, and they themselves are not even working. And that in the long run is going to cause a lot of problems. So one of the things that I approach the young boys, and whether it's at hostels, whether it's at the school, is I try to imprint upon them the importance of having a purposeful life, having goals, to set yourself goals for the year, and even for 3 years down the line or 5 years down the line. When I go into workplaces, men in workplaces, grown men, they know the corporate plan, the corporate 5 year plan. But when you ask them, what is your plan? Many of them don't have it. Many of them don't have their own plan. So this is what we teach them. We teach them how to think about goals, and not only think about it, pen it down on paper and write about it and keep it, bind it. And your corporation have their goals, this 5 year strategic plan. You need to have yours. As a man, this is very, very important, because you will be leaders of your families one day. And imagine a leader that does not know which direction to take. And that's what's trickling down in our society today. Yeah? So different levels, my young boys to the teenage boys to the grown men, the different ways of planting this. So once they get this, having a relationship with girls, how to treat girls, how to be able to talk to girls, this automatically takes care of itself.
Mm.
That's what I'm doing at the moment. Eh?
Yeah. So important, that sense of work and purpose. So important. So thank you for that. It's no secret that the pornography issue in Fiji is skyrocketed, and I've talked about that many times. How do you see that impacting on young men when it comes to them relating with girls? How do you see this porn-fueled culture that is just everywhere? Yeah, how is that impacting their view on how they see the opposite sex?
It's really damaging their point of view, eh? And it's a really damaging factor, because now men look boys look at women as tools or something to satisfy themselves. And for us, as men, when we watch this, we automatically perceive that every woman wants this to be done to them. And then it becomes toxic, because you try to bring that onto your partner, onto your girlfriend, onto your wife, or onto your friend. And it's very different. It's very different in how women perceive or look at pornography, and how men perceive and look at pornography. So that question, Letitia, it's a big damage on character, and it's not something that is easily remedied. It's not something that's easily remedied, because everyone has access to it. And once that thought or that video is planted into your mind is corrupt. Every girl you look at is going to be naked. You can strip her down naked.
Mm.
And that is why the mind here, that's the battlefield that we are trying to set. When we go with when we go to teach young men, we need to shift their mind. And I'm speaking to them this through my own experience, my own battle with pornography. So I know how hard it is, and the challenge that it takes upon, and the impact that it has on our lives. So it's huge. The impact is huge, Letitia.
Yeah, and your sons are at an age where they can, it's a really important age. Sometimes we think we don't need to talk to our kids till they're 16, but the average age of coming across pornography is age 8 to 11. So how do you, in age-appropriate ways, have a conversation to your sons about pornography?
Most of the times, when you're looking at pornography and growing up, um, when we're small, we just said, when we see two people kissing on television, or the elders would say, close your eyes, and you close your eyes, and then after they open their eyes again. That's the style that we were brought up with. Eh? Now it's different. It's very, you're so true. It's very accessible from 8 to 11 years old, and because everyone's got a smartphone. So one of the approaches that I do with my young boys is just telling them not to keep secrets. But teaching them not to keep secrets, not to do things, hidden things. Eh? If you're not clear about something, talk about it. That's what I'm going. It goes back to communication. So if somebody at school is showing you something that you're not clear about it, you talk about it. Let's not keep secrets. How you communicate it to me, and when they tell me things, especially things that um, you wouldn't expect from little kids, from little boys. First of all, as a parent, you need to ensure that you keep a straight face, because it's very easy to get angry. Because once you get triggered and you're angry, the child will never come back to you again with something else. So, although you are angry and boiling inside, you've got to control yourself and tell them, "Where did you see this? Who showed you this?" Then they will explain it, and then in as calm as you can be, you need to talk to them about it. For my boys, my children, right now I'm just telling them, a woman and a man, sex is a gift from God. Right? It's a gift from God. Basically, just telling them that, and it's only conducted in marriage. It's only conducted in marriage, eh? And but as they grow older, as they become more inquisitive, that's what I'm saying. They can communicate it easily to us. They come to me sometimes, seeing things. Hey, he did a rude act, or she did a rude act, and they were pointing at that part, and then they were laughing and all of this. And then I need to bring them, and I need to talk to both of them. Eh? So I'm saying, hey, look, you should not be doing this. You should not be screaming and pointing at and inappropriate parts. Eh? And they just basically need to automatically, Letitia, they will know what is appropriate and inappropriate. But you need to help them along the line. Eh? Because sometimes we have perpetrators who are very, very smart in how they approach these little children. Eh? It seems like it's appropriate, but it's not. So that's basically how I do it with my young boys, my young boys at home.
Yeah. What what do your boys need at this stage of their life that your girls didn't from you as parents?
At this stage of their life as young men, as young boys, at this stage of their life, they still need the presence, your presence. Eh? I was talking about young girls. At that stage, also, it's presence. Your presence is important, because sometimes we can be so-called fathers of the children, but we are there, but not there. They just need our presence. Simple things that I do with my boys, walking with them down the street, talking with them when going in the car. These simple things, they need their presence, your presence, and they need to be comforted at this time. Need to feel as much secure around you as possible. With my children, what I do for all my children, from when they were small, from baby until they could feed themselves. I'm the one I'm always helping Illy. I'll bath the boys, the babies. I will feed them. I'm sitting down there, mashing their food. So even until today, our youngest boy, he always needs some encouragement to eat. So he would always call upon me, and I would make that effort to sit and feed him, despite being tired, because it's you work in all day, and sometimes it's very easy to get agitated when they ask me, "Please feed me." Um, but the answer to that question, Letitia, is to keep ourselves involved in their life. Just your presence around your child, around your son, is something important. And most importantly, for men, for fathers, it's how we treat our daughters. It's how we treat our wives. The boys are watching. The boys are watching. So how I speak to my wife, how I speak to my girls, I need to speak to them in such a way that the boys will know, oh, okay, this is how I should be communicating to my wife, or to my friends who are girls in school. How to respect girls, and how to respect others, how to communicate. So presence is important, Letitia.
No, it's vital. Now, we've heard you talk on this platform just, about your relationship with your wife. I look forward to meeting her one of these days. Um, And it just sounds like you've got a beautiful partnership, that your marriage is not, kind of you're more important and you boss her around. And that's not always the case in every marriage in the islands. Quite often you do see the husband kind of telling the wife what to do and whatnot. Right, and sometimes it's the other way around as well. So and that really impacts young men because they watch their dads, and if they're watching a father who acts like he's the boss all the time, how can we help shape them? Because again, this is another issue of why the abuse is so big, because the man thinks he's the boss and the wife hasn't gotten food on the table in time, so she gets a beating. I mean, these are stories I have heard. So how do we, I guess, retrain our boys that marriage is a partnership? Um, you're not the boss. You're here to actually serve and love your family. Do you discuss this in your programs at school with the boys?
Oh yes, it's a very very important aspect of our training is being a good father. Because one of the research by one of our friends, and he found out that majority of our prisoners in the correct majority of them came from homes that have no fathers, single moms, and the father figure is really important. When you looking at fathers now, there is an importance, a very important need for fathers, for men to know their responsibility. Like, first of all, they need to know who they are. You need to know who you are. Because if you don't know who you are, you'll be intimidated so easily. You need to know who you are and you need to know whose you are. And that's why I always say, Letitia, I use God's blueprint. Because if you know who's really in charge, it's the man upstairs. We are just here to just do his will and go back. So what I teach these men is they need to know themselves, know your purpose. Because if you have a purpose in life, if you know your worth in life, you will not be easily threatened or intimidated. And that is one of the things that happens in the Pacific Island countries is we are easily intimidated. And I mean this by in a respectful manner. If you see someone who is different from comes from Australia, from New Zealand, the locals are easily intimidated because we perceive that they know more, they come from a bigger country. I cannot go and talk to them. I'm shy. I cannot speak to them. They might, say something and I don't understand. That perception, because first of all, they do not know who they are. So this is one of the things that we train our men. Once you know who you are, you know that you are not in competition with your wife. You know whatever your wife says, maybe sometimes out of anger, that does not change who you are. So you will not retaliate with words or actions, just knowing who you are. And at the same time, the most of the this is something that's vital, Letitia, that I hope that it can be taught more in the churches is how men, how these scriptures have been misinterpreted. It's been misinterpreted in such a way that it has caused a lot of men to have this false ego or false pride, and they think that they are the ones. Once you are married to me, I now own you. And we go back to scriptures, we see what God did in the Garden of Eden. He gave Adam and Eve dominion over all the fishes and the seas and all the birds. He never gave them dominion over each other.
Mm.
And that is this type of small, simple teachings, simple teachings that he brought them together as partners. And in reality, for a man to be a woman, she has to be, she will be more attracted to a man who is living a life that's purposeful. She'll be more attracted to someone who's more purposeful in his life, not someone who's overruling and dictating and telling her what to do, but someone who's able to get the dream and sit with her and you share the dream together. Right? So when you say in this that question, so that's very important. That's really important. And the misinterpretation of scriptures and the misinterpretations and the abuse of culture. How culture has always been blamed, but it's really been something that's been misinterpreted throughout the years.
Yeah, no, in a huge way. And it's so simple and just some little changes that could set a lot of people free, and make a lot more marriages healthier, and stop marriages from splitting, which then, hurts the children. It's this continual cycle, isn't it?
Yeah.
Such a big cycle. So we know that there are a huge amount of single mothers out there, which, I just honour and applaud. What a big job having to bring up children on your own. And if they are listening to this and thinking, well, Paul, you're an amazing dad and father, I don't have that in my life and I have 4 sons, where do they go to find good role models for their sons? Or how can they, as a mother, be preparing their sons for their future relationships?
That question, Cheryl, is one that, as a single mom or a single dad, there's some shoes that you are not able to wear, especially as a single mom bringing up 4 boys or 3 boys or even a boy, son, and trying to teach him about how to become a good person, a good father in the future is not easy because he has not seen it. All he has seen is this hardworking mom that is in front of him, you know. And there's a risk that may happen is one of the risks if we don't approach it well is because he sees his mother is so hardworking, he feels it that he owes everything to his mom. So he does not get married. He stays with his mom and he believes that he needs to pay everything back to his mom. So that's one of the risks because there's no father figure for him to look up to. One of the ways in which single mothers who have sons, one of the ways is to reach out to organizations like us. We have workshops and that we can run for your young men, your young boys. Also, before reaching out to us more closer to home, look at fathers or uncles, who are good role models for your boys. And these are the ones that you need to associate your young boys more with. Good uncles, uh, good grandpa, granddads, someone that they can look up to. Because physically and realistically, the single mom cannot wear the shoes of the dad. She can do everything that a father does, but she cannot be the father. And that is why the boy needs to see at least a male figure in his life. In saying that, Letitia, we need to understand that sometimes it's not as simple, one size fits all kind of solution. There are different types of places where the single mom has to do both and has to speak at abstract examples of how it is to be a good man. For myself, in my own personal life, Cheryl, I had my dad had his own issues. There was a lot of struggles. So I I would say I did not have a good example on how to treat women as I was growing up. I I would feel that it was I was not brought up in an environment where I had a good role model. Let's just put it that way. I was not brought up where I had a good role model. However, it changed when I started to see things differently from other men, uncles, and then I became a father, a husband myself, and then I became a father, and then it just changed through experience, through experience, and 6 children later, you become more experienced in how to treat your wife, For me, I never started off like this. My wife used to call me Robocop. I was like Robocop, couldn't hold her hand in public and all of this. Coming out of that stereotype of thinking that I was brought up in it, and then going to an all boys school made it more difficult for me to socialize with girls. So I had a lot of unpacking to do, unlearning, and new learning to do. And I'm still in the process. I'm still in the process. But whatever I have learned, I can give it to these young boys so they won't take as long as I did to try to become a better husband. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful, Paul. We're always still learning, and as long as we've got a humble heart willing to learn, and I know you've surrounded yourself with some good mentors as well. Look, our time is up. There's so much we could say because it's just such a huge issue. And I want to encourage people, please go to the Men's Empowerment Network page, Facebook page, follow them, engage with their programs that they run. If you are a single mum, please get your boys involved. I love, again, just your slogan of healthy men create healthy families that create healthy nations. And at the moment, the reality is that our nations aren't healthy. And a lot of it comes back to the fact that our fathers aren't healthy. So let's get on the front foot, start preparing our young boys now. Thank you, Paul. And I'm sure we'll have you back again sometime, some day, and we'll continue talking. And please send in any questions that you have out there, and happy to see if we can address them. So God bless. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you. God bless, Letitia. Thank you.